All right, we're back, baby. Joining me this week is a radio host, columnist, editor-in-chief of DailyWire.com, and most importantly, now two-time Rubin Report guest, Ben Shapiro. Welcome back.
Good to see you.
I thought you would be the right guy to have for the first show in our new studio.
I don't know what you were thinking, but sure.
Well, because a lot has happened since we last spoke,
Yes.
probably, I'd say roughly about a year ago. And I was with you on election night. You had me over at the Daily
Yeah, it's
Wire
fun.
studios, and we had a great time, and we had some beers. You were eating a lot of M&Ms.
Oh, yeah.
And
Got to keep that sugar intake up.
now, the thing that I found most interesting was that you did not like Hillary. Is
Right.
that fair to say? Did I
Yeah, no, I think she's awful.
do not like Hillary Clinton? Clearly do not like Donald Trump.
Right.
So far I'm good?
No, you're right on the money. That's
So watching you throughout that evening,
Mm-hmm.
the roller coaster of emotions that you were going through, going from when I sat down, when it still looked good for Hillary,
Mm-hmm.
to then it's starting to look like Trump, then realizing it was inevitable, but before they called it and everything else. I mean, you went through every emotion
was
known to man.
Bizarro world. Yeah, it was definitely weird because, I was, as you know, I was sort of rooting for both of them to get left adrift in a rowboat somewhere. But unfortunately, one of them was going to be president of the United States. So there was a lot of up and down going on, meaning that I was overjoyed that Hillary was not president of the United States. Anything that kept Hillary out of the White House, I was very happy about. And then I looked at who was actually entering the White House, and I went, well, this I have some trepidation about. I'm not sold on this whole Trump thing, because I hadn't been. I didn't end up voting for either of them.
Yeah.
I left the top of the ticket blank. Neither of them fulfilled my basic requirements to be president of the United States. So now, I was wrong about where I thought Trump would be. I thought Trump was going to lose, just like everybody else was looking at the polls, from Nate Silver to Larry Sabato. And I was clearly 100% wrong on that. So now I just hope that I'm wrong about him as a person and a president.
Yeah, so-
because if I'm right, then it's going to be a long 4 years.
I have a feeling that no matter what happens, it's going to be a long career.
For sure.
Yeah, whether he does good stuff and people come along for the ride, or whether he does bad stuff and they don't.
But at least if he does good stuff, then I can feel good about it, right? Like, I'm hoping that he does some good stuff.
Yeah. But at this point, you have to, right? Even if you don't like any of the positions he's taken or the moral center that seems to be all over this, you do root for him as the president.
Well, so I root for him to do good things. I don't like the phrase, people use this with Obama also, root for him. I don't root for Trump. I don't root for Obama. I didn't root for Hillary. It's not a team sport. I like the White Sox and the Bears and the Celtics. I root for them. I would like to see them win. But in politics, it's not just about winning. It's about what you do to win. It's about the policies that you implement that constitute winning. Like, how do you actually gauge winning? So for me, when Trump makes a bad deal that's good for him politically, that's not something I'm in favor of, right? I'm not rooting for him, even though it helps him politically. I'm rooting for him to do good things. So I'm rooting for me, right? I'm rooting for the country. I'm rooting for him to do the things that'll help the country, more than me, because I'm fine, but that'll help the country. But what I fear is that I think people are rooting for him or rooting against him. And if that's I said this on my podcast today, if your moral center is basically good for Trump is good for the country, or bad for Trump is good for the country, you need a different moral center.
Right. So that seems to be the place that we're at right now, where Trump said, I'm going to win, I'm a winner. And that force of will was almost enough in and of itself to make him a winner. So is your version of winning, which would be having certain a moral code and an ethical code, whatever, whether we agree on every little policy is irrelevant.
Right.
But can you win on that anymore? Now that we've seen how Trump won, do you honestly think that a conservative can win playing the game that's out there?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that. I think that some of the things that Trump did, and I said this very early on, I mean, very early, before he started kind of making an ass of himself repeatedly, I said that actually there was a good shot that he would be a better nominee in terms of winning than Marco Rubio, because I thought that he spoke a moral language about politics a lot of the other candidates did. I mean, you can go look back at my speech that I gave at University of Missouri in like October 2015, and I said that Trump might be stronger, especially among blue-collar whites in states like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. So I got it right then. I got it wrong a year later, right? But the idea there is that Trump speaks in terms of morality. There are good guys and bad guys, right? Whether you agree with his morality is another thing. But for him, all politics breaks down into good guys versus bad guys. Unfortunately, very often it's just I'm the good guy. Everybody who opposes me is the bad guy. But that's a way that people think about politics. And I think that if you had the actual proper moral, content to that sort of narrative, then yeah, you could still win based on that. It's so funny that everybody's sort of, because everybody's a binary thinker, everybody broke it down into Trump is the only one who can campaign aggressively. He's the only one who can speak this moral language. No, I wasn't against Trump campaigning aggressively or speaking this moral language. I just thought that he was applying it incorrectly. I mean, if you watch me in debate, I'm constantly applying moral language. I'm constantly aggressive, but I disagreed with Trump. You can do both at the same time.
Yeah. So are we at a point then of post-truth? Because if you look at what he says, now again, most of the criticism I get right now is that I'm being too kind to him. I've been saying for weeks now, we have to see what happens. I can't get outraged about appointments yet. I have to wait to see, you can get a sense of what's going on.
No, that's right.
But let's see what happens. But
I think that's right. I'm not outraged about the appointments. What he does and what he says, I can be outraged by, and I think that there's an incentive structure that has to exist, where if he does something bad now I criticize him. The argument was made during the election cycle for people on the right, well, if he says something bad, shh, be quiet, Hillary might get elected, right? And my view was, that's not my job. My job is to, as somebody who actually believes in something that's truthful, my job is to say what I think is true, whether he's saying it or not. But now, especially post-election, Hillary's no longer in the picture. So the question now is, if he does something that's false, are you going to call that out, even if you're politically on his side overall? And that's the real question for me. So my job, still is the same as it ever was. When he does something good, I praise him. When he does something bad, I don't.
Yeah, which really is not what many people.
People don't want that. No, people. I mean, it's fine.
Do they not want it? Because I suspect they want it. It's what I'm trying to do. I know it's.
I mean, it hasn't hurt me. I think with most people are refreshed when they hear somebody like you or like me say, okay, here's the truth. And I'm putting my own political interests aside, or the interests of the person who's at risk here, then here's what's true and here's what's not. But there's a large contingent that's going to resist that in a major way because, it has become such team sport. It has become, well, if you say something bad about Trump, then you're a cuck and you're undermining him. And it's like, well, again, Bill O'Reilly said that about George Will. George Will criticized the carrier deal. And O'Reilly comes out and he says, George Will's just undermining Trump. I said, wait a second, he's not my dictator.
Right, he's not the
He's my servant.
leader.
It's not right. It's not the opposite. I'm not his servant. He's my servant. He's a public servant now. I know that he's been in private business his whole life, but he's running for the job of public servant. Now it's his job to serve the interests of the American people. It's not my job to service his political interests.
Yeah.
And so, it's been very weird to watch people kind of invert that. And I thought that was unique to the left. So I've been disabused of that pretty radically.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. And maybe my feelings about what's happening with the left just kicked in a little earlier than yours have kicked in about the right.
I think that's true.
Because you are seeing this, and it's pretty obvious. I mean, to me, the issue will be that once these Trump people who have been all for, against political correctness and for free speech and all of this stuff, and say what you feel, and blah, blah, which I'm for all of that stuff. Of
course, so am I.
But once, on January 20th, once those are the guys that are in power, will they be as for fighting the power?
No,
I somehow suspect not.
No, I mean, Kellyanne Conway today, right? I mean, Kellyanne Conway was out there criticizing, I think it was Bret Stephens from the Wall Street Journal. Bret Stephens from the Wall Street Journal was making fun of Carly Fiorina because she went to Trump Tower. And he says, 5 minutes ago, you were saying he was the worst person who ever was, and he was making fun of your face, and now here you are at Trump Tower. And Kellyanne Conway tweets back at Bret Stephens, and she says something like, that's really sexist, what do you think? And then she tags Rupert Murdoch, right, who owns the Wall Street Journal.
Right.
I mean, so is this the way that this is going to go now, that we're going to go to the bosses of the people who we don't like what they're saying?
Right, that's someone literally in the incoming administration tagging someone.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Hannity did the same thing today. Somebody at Red State criticized him, didn't like something that he did, so he immediately tagged the heads of Salem Communications, which owns Red State. I mean, is this something that we want to engage in?
Yeah.
This is not, I disagree with people all the time. I generally don't call for them to be fired. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's sometimes, there was a point where I suggested that there should be, if leftists were going to apply certain tactics, then you have to apply those same tactics to people on the left in order to create a sort of mutually assured destruction. But that's not what's going on now. Now what's going on is you criticize certain people, and those people just say you ought to be fired just for the criticism. In fact, I've never blocked anyone on Twitter. I don't mute anybody on Twitter. So all the evil, terrible tweets that I receive, I've never called for anybody to be banned from Twitter, even though, I was, according to the ADL, the #1 recipient of anti-Semitism online this year.
We'll get to that.
So but that's not my thing. But watching people on my own side do it now, it's like, well, you should shut up because Trump. No, sorry, that's not the way it works.
Yeah. Can you win that battle? I mean, I think your answer is yes.
Exactly. I mean, as you know, you wouldn't be in this business. I wouldn't be in this business if I didn't think the battle were winnable. I think that in the afterglow of an election, it's very difficult for people to get past the team sport of it and the warm feeling and the excitement. So I immediately, as you mentioned that night, I kept going from excitement to trepidation to, oh my God, I can't believe this was the election. But a lot of people just went straight to, we hate Hillary Clinton so much, everything is now hunky-dory, no problems anymore, Trump's here, I alone can solve. And I think that'll last up until the point where the pedal hits the metal, and then we'll see what kind of policies he actually implements and whether people are willing to stand up. My bet is that a lot fewer people will be willing to stand up and not back him when he does bad things than you would have thought a year ago.
Yeah, I guess we shall see. What's next? Okay, so he becomes president.
Mm-hmm.
He starts doing whatever he's doing. The left automatically, and this has been my fear all along, is if you demonize someone to the point where even if they do good, you have to keep demonizing them, because if he's a racist bigot, even if
There's
a
no
racist
place to go from there. Yeah.
even if a racist bigot does good things for the economy, well, you can't be nice to him, right?
Right.
Because he's the scum of the earth. What happens after this? Because it seems to me that I think we're going to start seeing more of a trend of violence and the state coming down on more violence. Like, it just seems like this is where this has all been led up to, and he's the guy to lead the fight against that.
Well, I mean, the level of radicalism that's emerged on both sides in terms of the wild intolerance for people with differing political opinions is pretty extreme, as you're saying.
Yeah.
I think that if Democrats were smart, they would actually see this as kind of an opportunity. My guess is that Trump's going to govern as more of a centrist Democrat than he is as a hardcore right-wing Republican. I mean, he's talking about trillion-dollar infrastructure packages, and he's talking about tariffs, and he's talking about a lot of Bernie Sanders kind of policies.
He's a populist, not an idealist.
That's right. And so what you could see Democrats doing is doing exactly what they did to Herbert Hoover. Let's say things go bad, right? If things go well, he'll be reelected, because a president who's president when things are going well generally is reelected. But let's say for the sake of argument, things don't go well. Let's say that just as every 8 to 10 years for the last several decades in this country, there's some sort of recession, and Democrats blame Trump for it. What they could do is they could campaign on tripling down on the populism, right? I mean, they actually have that opening now, whereas they didn't before, and they could actually do FDR to Hoover. They could say, Hoover kind of implemented a lot of soft FDR policies, and then FDR came in and tripled down on everything and gets elected 4 straight times. You could see Democrats doing this. Things shift really quickly in the country, and Hillary did win by about 3 million popular votes, so this isn't quite the massive majority that Republicans are banking on. But I do think that if their rhetoric is this extreme, during the campaign, the question is going to be whether they ratchet it up or whether they sort of ratchet it down and wait to see what happens. I'm seeing some of both.
Yeah?
Because
I hope you're right. Because
like Harry Reid, for example, came out and he says, so far Trump's not that bad, which is something that should make conservatives a little concerned. But Harry Reid says that you could see Democrats move in that direction. He's not that bad, and then things collapse. Say, oh, told you he was that bad.
Right.
But the other, because they want to get some liberal policy out of him, some lefty policy out of him. But on the other hand, what's going on university campuses and the sort of extreme response, that I think is going to get a lot worse. So I think Democrats in government will likely treat him with more moderation after the election than they did before the election, because that's sort of been the pattern. But the typical public is going to treat this as like we're now in end of times politicking.
Right. So I guess that's an interesting distinction, that the sort of leadership, whether it's the media or the political leadership, may be willing to work with him in a certain way, but they've ginned up something in the populace that they maybe can't control.
Exactly.
Anymore.
And actually you're seeing that battle play out in the Democratic Party right now. You've got the people who want to double down on all the kind of identity politics rhetoric, like Keith Ellison, right, who's going to double down on that, and he's going to keep saying racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe. Let's get our coalition together, the Obama coalition. We'll run somebody who's not an old white lady next time. We'll run Cory Booker or Kamala Harris, and then we'll just sweep back to victory using this new coalition that's demographically growing. And then you've got people like Joe Biden and some of the old guard Democrats who are saying, well, hold on just a second. Like, we can actually, why are we abandoning all of these blue-collar white voters who were voting for us until very recently, right? A lot of these counties went for Obama the first time. And why don't we try to draw them in by maybe working with Trump, and then and then hitting him when we think that he's overly selling something, or hitting him when things go bad.
Yeah.
And so that conflict will really play out at the DNC level. And that's a fascinating one.
I would bet everything that they're going to go the Bernie Ellison route.
I would think so, too.
And they're going to dump everybody else. Do you think there's any room for those people left? For a Jim Webb, Biden? I mean, those happen to be two older white guys. But even anyone in that general line of thinking, blue dog Democrat, is that...
Not Jim Webb, right? I think Jim Webb's toast. Biden still tries to straddle that gap a little bit, and he gets away with it because he's part of the Obama administration.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to be gradually dragged to the left, because, again, our entire life, the left has been gradually dragged further and further to the left. I'm waiting to see them moderate. Since Clinton, they've been dragged that way.
That's the thing. I think for a long time that the right got dragged further and further to the right, but this election, clearly, they weren't.
No, they weren't. They were dragged to the left, actually, pretty hard.
They were. I mean, Trump doesn't. It's obvious he doesn't care about gay marriage. I don't think he cares.
No, social issues?
I don't think he cares about abortion. I don't think he cares about weed, I think, even some of the tax stuff, I think is going to be a little more.
As I said, I think he'll be a centrist Democrat. I think he's going to govern a lot more like Bill Clinton than he would govern like Ronald Reagan.
And that's the danger, though, if you demonize somebody to that nth point, and then even if they are with you on so many of the things that you've been screaming about for so long, you've painted yourself into the corner.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think the Democrats have painted themselves in a little bit of a corner, except that they're just banking on the growth of the Obama coalition. They keep looking at those demographic numbers, and they keep thinking, okay, in 2020, 40% of all voters will be of the millennial generation. Those people broke heavily for Hillary. So what's to stop us now? And demographics are not quite destiny. I mean, demographics are like that's.
And what a sad way! What a sad way that would be to live as a society.
Well,
that we would only be following the demographic trend.
But that's what we are right now. I mean, we've moved in such a tribal direction too. I mean, it's easy to look at this election cycle and look at did he win on policy? I don't think that Trump won on policy so much as rejection of tribalism in favor of another sort of tribalism. Like if you look at how blue collar white voters voted in this election cycle, by percentage. White working class people voted more for Trump than Hispanics voted for Hillary Clinton. And people are constantly talking about the idea that Hispanics are a voting bloc. Okay, well then so are white blue collar people, presumably. And they voted precisely the reverse. They voted like 71% for Trump. That's it. Again, I don't have a problem with people of any group voting however they want to vote. But if it starts to look like a voting bloc, like our group interest, solidarity, I don't think that's totally what's happening. I don't think there's a bunch of white people getting together and going, oh, we got to vote against those black and Hispanic people.
Right.
Just like I don't think that it's all Hispanic people getting together, we need to vote against the white people. But there is that growing sense that you're going to vote inside your own bloc, and that is not a good thing.
Do you think that's actually real, though? Because every time I watch John King with the magic wall that I'm pretty sure he's having an affair with during the commercial breaks, but every time I watch him do that, I say, well, the white working class people here and the black people here and the Latino people here and this whole thing, and it's like, not only does that actually sort of sound racist, and I don't...
No, it does. I mean,
like, you're
right.
actually just pinning everyone by these traits, but it doesn't sound logical. I don't think, and maybe I'm really wrong here, but I don't think most people vote on the color of their skin, or
no, I don't think so either. But I think that they vote like their neighbors vote, and so if they see that their neighbors are voting a certain way, and there's a certain revenge politics to everything, and this is not unique to one group. It's like the system has screwed us.
Yeah,
the system has screwed us is one of the ways that politics dies. That notion, the system has screwed us, and I don't just mean like the government. If you can show that the government is specifically disadvantaging your group, that's one thing. But when you just say the system broadly is screwing us, and it's us as white blue-collar workers, or it's us as black people, or it's us as Hispanics, that's a really damaging thing. And that, I think, is rising pretty dramatically.
Yeah.
And that's partially because the only way that politics operates, and I've spoken about this at length recently, but the only way that politics actually operates, the only way society operates is through building of the social fabric. The idea that we are individuals and we're going to treat each other as individuals, we're not going to treat each other as members of groups. The left has spent so long breaking people down into identity group politics that the right responded with its own form of, okay, well, screw you. You've already boxed us in, so okay, now that we're in the box, we're in the box. Like, that's what it is.
Right. It's almost like they hated it for so long, but now they're embracing it.
You see
Which
that,
is why
right?
I've tried so hard to have the left back away from some of this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd like to see the right back away from some of this stuff. I think that's what a lot of the alt-right controversy was about, because they're really open about the tribalism. But, I mean, there's no question that some of what Trump was doing was a quasi-tribal appeal, right? I mean, when he was talking about tariffs, for example, the tariffs that he's talking about, he's saying that obviously they're equally applicable to people living in the United States, but really who he's talking to, and everybody knew this, and it was repeated ad nauseum in the media, was he was talking to white blue-collar voters from Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And when you say to people that you can indirectly tax other people for your benefit,
right,
which is what a tariff is, but it's okay for the white people, but we also don't like the welfare system for the black people, then you start getting into some really, kind of interesting political territory. And the idea that it was a totally race-free campaign by Trump is not true. I mean, it wasn't. Like, the fact is that Donald Trump was making not overt references to race, but he was making subtle appeals on the basis
Is anyone saying it was a race-free campaign? Are there people?
I think there are people. Yeah, I mean, Kellyanne Conway is a good example, right? She said there was the big debate between her and Jen Palmieri from the Clinton campaign, and Jen Palmieri said that you guys were pandering to the alt-right, and Kellyanne Conway said, "You're accusing me of being part of a campaign that would pander to the alt-right?" And Jen Palmieri said, "Yeah." But Kellyanne did the, who, me? Me? What? And it's like, well, yeah, you a little bit. I mean,
yeah. And yet at the same time, the Democrats were pandering to everybody. They keep saying we don't talk about race, but every other line was
race.
About race.
Exactly. Yeah. And so you have both sides playing the same game now. And none of them are playing inside the mentality that where I exist, which, you put it outside the conservative box for a second. I am essentially a radical individualist in the sense that I think that people ought to be treated as individuals. They shouldn't be treated as part of groups. And so treating voters as part of a group.
You're a classical liberal.
Yeah, that's right.
And you admitted that?
Sure. And like a European-style classical liberal?
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, except with
I thought you really liked the conservative thing enough that even to say that. Although
I'm more kind of a conservative libertarian mashup than anything else. I think the government sucks at everything, right? I mean, like we've talked about same-sex marriage before.
Yeah.
I'm personally against same-sex marriage, but I don't think the government has any business in it. I'm personally against smoking marijuana. I don't think the government has pretty much any business in it. If you're not creating externalities, I don't think that the government has any business messing with you.
Right,
So,
and that's why I can sit across from you and you can say that, and it doesn't bother me because
Right,
you're not trying, at this point, you're not trying to stop either one of those things.
right, exactly.
And why? So you can believe what you want to believe.
Exactly.
I know I'm supposed to be offended and probably
No,
throw something at
but this
you.
is right, exactly. But this is the thing. It's so funny. I was talking to somebody one time, and they were saying, as a religious person, you think homosexual behavior is a sin. I said, right, as an Orthodox Jew, right? It's in the Bible. I think it's a sin.
Yeah.
Here's the beautiful thing about America. You don't have to give a crap.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can think I'm an idiot. That's fine, right? Welcome to America. And,
Right.
and you seriously can completely disregard everything I'm saying because I'm not trying to use a gun to enforce my opinion against you.
You're not trying to use a gun, and actually you're not even trying to use the Bible because
Right, exactly.
you're not trying to govern by the Bible. That's exactly what you're saying.
That's right.
You're saying you have your private belief.
Right, exactly.
When did we lose this ability to have the private belief? Because did you see this about a week ago? BuzzFeed did a piece on the two people from that HGTV show.
Yeah, I wrote about
blanking
this.
on the show. I watch it sometimes.
Yeah, the Gaines couple.
Yeah, the Gaines couple.
Joanna and I can't remember the fellow's name. I don't watch the show, but yeah.
But they do this house flipping show. It might be called Flip or Flop or Flop or Flip or whatever it's called. But the point is that is that what it is? So I've watched the show many times. They strike me as two completely benign, whatever, fine people, like their jobs, seem like these are people. And the whole piece in BuzzFeed was that they go to a church that's against gay marriage. And I thought, this is the worst kind of smear job nonsense.
Exactly.
But when did that become okay? So what? They go to a church where we don't know what their beliefs are on it, and I wouldn't care, actually.
Right, exactly. And even if they believe that, as long as they're not manifesting that in discrimination against gay people, who gives a crap?
Right.
I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, first of all, the idea that HGTV is short on pandering to gay people is patently insane. Okay, my wife watches HGTV.
Where do you think we learned all of our?
I mean, look how beautifully decorated. But it is amazing. I mean, that sort of thought policing. I mean, that's existed for a couple of decades, probably since the '60s for the left. But the fact that it's starting to exist a little bit on the right is what frightens me. Is the thought policing. That I see because politics has become a loyalty test.
But it's so selective in what everyone does because I would guarantee, you mentioned Keith Ellison a moment ago, I'm going to guess that the mosque that he goes to is probably, the imam is probably not for gay
100%.
marriage. But BuzzFeed, I'm just guessing on that, but I'm pretty sure that
the vast majority of mosques are not, yeah.
Probably 99.9% of mosques in America are not. Okay, that's fine, they can have their personal religious belief, but BuzzFeed would never do a piece on that. If anything, they'll whitewash everything he's ever said about Farrakhan and everything else.
Right, exactly.
So that just shows you how the media has, and I hate
again, they said that they were fine with Obama's excuse that he went to a church for 20 years where Jeremiah Wright was preaching the most insane crap imaginable from the pulpit. And they just went, okay, well, that's his church, and nobody says he has to believe that. And I said, wait a second. Yeah. Why is that's okay for Obama, but it's not okay for the Gaines? Yeah. Okay, Obama's like, he's going to actually run for president. Like, if at any point the guy's views are going to be relevant, you would think it's more that than, I don't know, are you going to knock out a barrier and create an open kitchen concept on HGTV?
Right.
But it is pretty wild how far things have gone. I'm hoping that I think that a lot of people who are hoping that Trump is going to be a blowback against that there'll be less thought policing under Trump, but that also has to apply to Trump.
Right.
That has to apply to Trump himself, and it has to apply to
when Kellyanne Conway is tagging people. Bosses on Twitter that they don't like, that's not a good sign.
Well, I mean, Donald Trump was making those noises all throughout the campaign, right? He's saying he wants to rewrite libel law, which for people in our business is like, I mean, all we do all day is sit and give opinions on people.
Right.
And the idea that we're going to be sued for giving those opinions is a pretty frightening thing in the United States.
Yeah, but it isn't so much of that, though, and I think you've already said this, but that it's just a reaction to the lunacy that's happening.
Trump's a reactionary, and the reaction to him is reactionary. There's no question. But reactionary politics is bad politics, right? You should have the reaction to the left has been breaking people down by race and by identity politics is not, well, screw them. Let's do identity politics too. If they can do it, we can do it. Yeah. That's not the way that you got to play the game. I mean, and if you think that's the only way we can win, then we're bound for a European-style politics. It's the end of American politics. Like what America used to be about was the idea that as individuals, we disagreed about a lot of things, but we agreed that we were going to be treated as individuals, or at least that was supposed to be the promise that we were attempting to fulfill. In Europe, it all breaks down according to demographic lines, and you just have a battle between the big government right and the big government left. And are you going to let in immigrants this time, or you're not going to let in immigrants this time? Yeah. And I think that we're in danger of moving that way. We're gonna Schadenfreude our way right into something really ugly.
Yeah, in a weird way though, this presents a tremendous amount of opportunity, right? I was telling you right before we started, I was with you a couple weeks ago. Dennis Prager had a fundraiser, and I thought he gave a really great speech about basically saying the world is in a really nuts place right now, and maybe we have to find allies in other places, and that's what I think I've tried to do. So there is, for all the chaos of it,
yeah,
there's some real opportunity.
I mean, I hope so, and I hope that I think it's a good opportunity for, when I do my podcast, I actually keep a physical shoe on the set, and I hold it up and I say, put this on the other foot. Right? Whenever Trump does something, I say, just put this on the other. If Obama did this, how would you feel? And it's a good opportunity for people on the left to do the same thing. I think that if we all sort of take the shoe and put it on the other foot, like now you're very upset with what Trump's doing, but how were you with it when Obama was doing it? If you think it's bad when Trump's doing it, maybe it was bad when Obama was doing it. And for the right, if you were really pissed off about it when Obama was doing it, and now Trump's doing it, maybe you should be pissed off when Trump's doing it. And if everybody applied that sort of intellectual honesty, I think, to whatever our politicians do, we'd be significantly better off, because the fact is that it's the team sport of it that ruins it. It's the team sport of it that where you end up with, I'm going to root for my guy, just no matter what he does, no matter what rules he breaks. And this is why I've said it's not team sport. Politics is not team sport. Like as a White Sox fan, there was a catcher who caught for us named A.J. Pierzynski. And A.J. Pierzynski was a player that everybody hated and still hates in the major. I think he plays for the Braves now. And they despise him because he was this guy who'd like cut any corner to win. And when he's not on your team, you hate him. And then he's on your team and you love him. Right? He's the greatest. He'll do anything in order to win. The problem is that when you apply that to politics, and if he's on my team and he'll do anything to win, that's awesome. Well, except for it isn't, because now you have to be standing up for people doing bad things.
Yeah, and that's the strange thing. I mean, look, for all these people that are upset that Trump might be a warmonger or might be against the press, now he might be, but A, he didn't run certainly on a pro-war policy, but B, Obama has been doing drone strikes in Afghanistan, drone strikes in Pakistan. Ask Edward Snowden how he's been for press freedom and all that kind of stuff. So regardless of how you feel about
Obama's been terrible for press freedom.
So it's like, wait, why weren't you guys saying anything? You'd have a little more weight to your words now.
Exactly. I said this on Brian Stelter's show on CNN, is they were going nuts over, this is when Trump was tweeting against Hamilton. And I said, like, let's be fair to both sides. If Obama had done this to a NASCAR event, like some NASCAR event in 2011, booed Michelle, and he'd gone on and said, these NASCAR people should shut up and apologize, basically. He would have been applauded by the left, and now Trump does it on Hamilton, and it's just the end of the world. Oh my God, he's going to shut down our beloved Hamilton. And he, by the way, is right. It's an overrated musical. But on the other side,
I haven't seen it yet.
On the other side, you had people on the right, and they were like, "Yeah, look at Trump, really punching, really taking it to him." I was like, right, but when Obama did exactly the same sort of stuff, when he was calling out Fox News by name and saying that it was that they were destroying the political process, we were saying, wait, the president of the United States shouldn't be going out and attacking specific news outlets for how they report. That's really gross. So funny, I had somebody tweet me saying, why didn't you ever say this stuff about Obama? And I linked directly to a video from 2013 where I said exactly this about Obama. And it's again.
You could probably spend your whole life trying to correct the things that people tweet.
But that's what happens, is that people get into this, they get into this mode where, yeah, when Obama did it, it was the Democrats didn't care. And it's like, yeah, but that argument also applies to you. You did care when Obama did it, and now you're pretending not to. So the hypocrisy argument cuts both ways. It's a double-edged sword. You can't claim the Democrats are hypocrites about Trump at the same time that you're being a hypocrite about Obama.